Welcome to Illo Talk. I am Cory Kerr, and this is Sticker Stint Day 20. A little bit behind on the videos, but the other day we watched Guy Ritchie's King Arthur, The Legend of the Sword, which is a super bad A movie. Like, the pacing is amazing. I love everything about that movie. Like, it's just so good. Anyway, got me thinking, I don't do fan art often, and technically I guess you could call this fan art, but it's fan art of a historical legend, because it doesn't actually have anything to do with the movie. It just reminded me that I've always wanted to know more about King Arthur. So, King Arthur is an interesting figure. So, he is sort of Welsh origin, and also of English, right? And so, there's some conflicting accounts, probably because he did exist, but it was like 5th century, and so, you know, it was quite a long time ago, and it was legend, and a lot of the legends depend on like how you interpret history and whatnot, but there were like real people involved. Like Merlin, as we know him now, didn't actually exist, but he was made up of 2 different people. And so one person was this bard, this bard, like a traveling musician who went crazy when he had to live in the woods for a while, and became somewhat of a prophet, and because of his insanity. And then there's also another guy who was a general, and he was fairly interesting and manipulative and whatever. And so they took this crazy prophet dude that lived in the woods and this general guy, and they mixed them together, and they created the idea of Merlin. That was Geoffrey of Monmouth, who wrote this Historia Regum Britannia, History of the Kings of Britain, in the 12th century. So, I mean, it was like 700 years afterwards, right? And so, you know, he kind of combined some stuff. Anyway, it's pretty interesting. And stuff like Lancelot didn't even exist until like a French guy, like way later, decided to add him. I don't even know how to say that guy's name. Cretinian de Troyes or something. Anyway, that's where Lancelot and the Holy Grail like kind of came in or whatever. Merlin was tied to the Holy Grail a little bit as well, but like Uther Pendragon, his dad, Merlin, his wife Guinevere, the sword Excalibur, anyway, all that kind of stuff, that has some basic basis in historicity, right? And so there's some debate amongst scholars of whether it's real or not, but I tend to think that stuff like this isn't like made up of whole cloth, and so there's probably like somebody. So anyway, one of the things that I think is kind of interesting is that the tale that we know now, there's like a Broadway musical, and there's been a number of movies, and according to our modern sensibilities, he's very chivalrous, and actually some of the original stuff, if we look at it through modern eyes, was super weird, and we would be very uncomfortable with it. For example, Uther Pendragon, who is Arthur's dad, was like a local king, right? Kind of what we would consider like a warlord or a mayor nowadays. Like, not the way that we would think of kings back then. But he was conquering, you know, quite a bit, right? His older brother, or him, depending on which legend you go by, saw a comet in the sky, a big flaming ball of fire that kind of was in the shape of a dragon. And so he took on the name Pendragon. Pen meaning chief or in charge of or the greatest of. And dragon is actually a reference to like warriors and whatever. Anyway, so he took on the moniker Pendragon. And that was either Uther or his older brother. But either way, that's where Pendragon came from. That was passed down. So Merlin came along, head of the mages, and came along and said, hey, how's it going, blah, 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 right? Struck up friendship, blah, 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 all that stuff, okay? Very unlike the Disney version where they turned into squirrels and fish and ran around and whatnot. But Merlin was a shapeshifter, and so Merlin could change into many different things. It was normally different types of old men or whatever. Anyway, he changed Uther's appearance to look exactly like his arch enemy. And then Uther basically shapeshifted as his arch enemy, went and slept with his arch enemy's wife, impregnated her. She gave birth to Arthur, illegitimate son of Uther, right? Anyway, that night that she conceived, his arch enemy died in battle, and then he married her, and together they had Arthur. And then Arthur actually did something similar. In Guy Ritchie's thing, Mordred was Arthur's uncle, Uther's brother. But in the legend, Mordred is actually Arthur's illegitimate son. And so there's everything that has to do with Arthurian legend originally had a lot to do with illegitimacy and rising to power in spite of the laws of primogeniture. So anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting. The Lady of the Lake is an interesting figure who eventually traps Merlin in the lake. But Merlin is super interesting. So Merlin was said to be the offspring of a woman who I don't know much about, and an incubus. An incubus is the male version of a succubus. And succubi and incubi were demons that would come to men and women at night, and they would sleep with them. And this is where erotic dreams are supposed to come from or whatever. But they had the ability to impregnate women. The incubus did. And so, like, if a nun was found to be impregnated by an incubus demon, then she was burned, and, like, the Catholic Church had a big thing about it and whatever. And there's actually Catholic writings about whether incubus and succubus are different types of demons or whether they're the same demon and they're kind of hermaphrodite and they are heterosexual, and so they change their gender based on who they're going to visit the night or whatever. I mean, lots of really interesting things. But the mother that was impregnated by this incubus, Merlin was supposed to be the Antichrist and supposed to end the world and all this stuff. She found out about this demon's ploy and went to the local clergy and said, this kid's going to be trouble, let's fix it. And so that he was baptized at birth. And because he was baptized at birth, he was removed of the evil curse, but retained a lot of the demonic powers. And that's how he was such a powerful wizard, was because he was able to take his father's parentage and remove the evilness of it. So kind of an interesting thing. Anyway, the Lady of the Lake here is giving Arthur the sword Excalibur and the crown which allowed him to rule Britain. And he took over Iceland and most of the UK. And so the actual Arthur actually did, according to the original legends, the epic poems and whatnot in the Welsh language, he did fight off the Anglo-Saxons, and depending on which poem you go by, he did that either by fighting off them as human beings or fighting off them and other supernatural things and monsters and whatnot. Anyway, super fascinating stuff to read all about this, and I just found it very interesting. And the movie is rad. So if you haven't seen the movie, it is straight up rad. It's like one of the best action films ever because there's still character development. There's still things like that, but they do it in such a fast-paced staccato way that the pacing is just incredible. And it's not like pedal to the metal the entire time. It's just pretty good. So anyway, that's today's sticker. Yeah. Or actually, that's the 20th sticker. So I still have the videos to do for the other ones. But I will catch you guys later. Hopefully you had a good weekend. If you want to see this and other things, you can go to corykerr.com/stickerstint and you can check it out. And if you haven't yet, go like and comment on the artwork of these stickers that I'm posting to Instagram and to Twitter, because that helps with all the social media algorithms and AIs and whatnot. You guys are awesome. I will catch you later.